Good evening, students. Now we'll start this, in fact, second lecture of this course. In the last class, we just started the basic of this particular course. We introduced the dynamic system, what is their components. So very basic things regarding type of forces, type of internal forces are there in the systems like inertia force, stiffness, damping, or external force. And even we, I think, defined the degree of freedom of the system. So still we are in very basic steps. In the present class also, we will be dealing with the single degree of freedom system. Especially, I think you must have studied the single degree of freedom system, free vibration, forced vibration. But especially in the forced vibration, I will try to give a new concept, how we can able to obtain the response of the system when the force is not sinusoidal or periodic. I think Mayank, you want to say something? Mayank, you raised your hand.
Uh, no, sir, it was my system hanged.
Okay, okay, okay. Uh, in single degree of freedom system, when the force is sinusoidal in nature, then you already studied this, how to obtain the force response. But when the force is periodic, then as we know, using Fourier series, the periodic function can be broken into sine, cosine in their fundamental frequency and higher harmonics. And with that, because we are dealing with the linear system, so we can take one particular harmonic at a time, and whatever you have studied with that, we can able to obtain response one by one by this force components. And as I mentioned in the last class, the superposition theorem can be applied. So that means when individual forces are applied, response can be obtained. And if you want to obtain response due to all the forces, then that response will be summation of all such responses. So the superposition theorem is very handy in the linear case. We can easily uh, obtain the response even for the large number of forces by taking one at a time and then adding the response at the end. But when there is a force which is aperiodic, then we cannot able to use the Fourier series. So we'll see this kind of concept, how we can able to obtain response even in the single degree of freedom system when the force is not periodic. It is aperiodic. So now I'll start the screen sharing, and so there's a typical elements of a dynamic system: the spring, mass, and damper. So here we are talking about the discrete system, in which if we are considering the spring, then is having the stiffness property only. There is no mass of the spring we are considering here. And the stiffness is represented by K, and the unit of that we know that Newton per meter. And usually it is called spring constant. The spring, if we apply some force on this, so it stores some energy. Okay, that energy is called strain energy. Similarly, dampers, when we are talking about, so dampers dissipate the energy from the system. So this is something like a cylinder and the piston, and in between there is a dashpot. So generally, this kind of thing you'll find in automobiles. Like if your bikes, in front of bike, front wheel will be having two rods connected to that. There, the damper and the spring both are there, and that is represented by C. That is called coefficient of viscous damping, and unit of that, Newton second per meter. And damper resists the relative motion when, especially like if we are talking about vehicle, when is going through some rough surface, a lot of vibrations will take place. So this damper will reduce that particular vibrations within a short period of time, so that the passenger should not feel uncomfortable. This particular mass, we know if we are applying a mass, some dynamic force, then is having some kind of inertia force, which will be opposite to the applied force direction. So these are the three internal forces will be there in the dynamic system: the restoring force, damping force, and the inertia, and the fourth force will be the external force. So yeah, so this is a linear system in which you can see that a spring is compressed at both ends, having x1 displacement here in the right end and x2 displacement in the left hand. So the relative compression of this will be x2 minus x1, and if we multiply by the spring constant, that will be giving us the spring force. Similarly, in the damper, the two ends are having x1 velocity, x2 dot velocity, two velocities are there. So the difference in the velocity multiplied by the damping constant will give the damping force. So here you can see the damping force is proportional to the relative velocity between the two ends of the damper, and the restoring force or the spring force is proportional to the relative displacement between the two ends of the spring. But in the case of inertia mass having some acceleration x double dot, the inertia force will be mx double dot, and it will be opposite to the motion acceleration direction. So these are the forces which these elements will be having. Now, sometimes we have combination of the springs in the system. So if combinations are there, there are several combinations can be there. Like here, two springs are connected in parallel. So still the same formula will be valid. Only thing is we need to replace the stiffness by equivalent stiffness of the two springs. So for parallel connection, we know that the two spring constant can be added directly to get a equivalent stiffness. Similarly, in the series connection, if there are K1 and K2, two stiffnesses are there, the relative displacement between these two are x1 and x2. So effective stiffness of this will be like this for the series connections, and the stiffness force will be, the spring force will be K equivalent into x2 minus x1. So even if we have this kind of complex arrangement of the spring, we can able to find out the equivalent of that, and that can be used in the to find the stiffness force. Now coming to the more basic, the in the last class, I took this particular example in which this was the wagon having mass m and is connected by a spring and the stiffness. So when some force is applied, dynamic force is applied, then is having some displacement xt. Now, if we remove the springs and the damper, so this is called free body diagram, in which we show only the forces. All the other elements we remove it. So the external force is as it is. This displacement direction is same as the previous one. Only thing is the stiffness force. Now we are applying. Stiffness force will be opposite to the motion because xt is in the right direction. So stiffness force will be opposite to that. Here, because other end of the spring is fixed, so there is no relative displacement like x2 and x1. Only one displacement is there. If this support is also moving, then the previous expressions will be valid here. Similarly, for damping, we have the velocity here also x dot. So, and the damping force is also opposite to the motion, to the displacement. So now this is free body diagram in which we have forces, external force, restoring force, and the damping force. Another force which is fictitious force is the inertia force. So if the acceleration direction is taken in the positive x direction, then this inertia force will be opposite to this. It has been shown by a dotted line that shows that this is some kind of imaginary force which is applied opposite to the motion direction. So this is inertia force. So this particular body is subjected to 4 forces: restoring force, damping force, inertia force, and the external force. So these force balance is nothing but the governing equation. So using Newton's law, we can write summation of all the external force. So external force in this will be Ft, restoring force, damping, and that should be equal to the inertia. Okay. So in Newton's second law, inertia is so sum of external force is equal to inertia. Okay. So, and this is the same equation of motion which we get for the single degree of freedom system. Mx double dot Cx dot plus Kx is equal to Ft. It's very standard equation of motion, which is force balance, which is acting onto the mass. This equation for free vibration, if you want to analyze, of course, we need to ignore the external force Ft. So if we ignore the force Ft, then basically this equation becomes homogeneous because all the terms are having x. So the solution of this can be taken in the form of x is equal to some amplitude t raised to alpha t. And because this equation of motion involves derivative of this, so we can derivate once with respect to time and the twice also. And then this can be substituted in place of x double dot, x dot, and x, these three. So the assumed solution we can substitute. So basically here we are trying to find out if this is the solution of the governing equation. So for what condition this solution will be satisfying the governing equation. So once we substitute, we will get from this equation this 1.5 equation, m alpha square plus c alpha plus k is equal to 0. This is a quadratic equation which can be solved in closed form in terms of alpha. So this can be written like this. So alpha is having two solutions because plus and minus both we can able to take. And here this alpha has been expressed here in terms of mass, stiffness, and damping coefficient. Sometimes we define uh, two variables, two parameters. One is the damping ratio, which is nothing but the damping of the system divided by the critical damping. So 2m omega n is the critical damping of the system, where omega n is the natural frequency of the system, which is defined as root k by m. So this expression we can able to write, even the equation of motion we can able to write in terms of the zeta, which is damping ratio, and the natural frequency. So this equation I've written here. So you divide by m whole expression here and then rearrange the terms. So you'll get the equation in terms of damping ratio, natural frequency like this. Okay. So this is also very standard form of the equation of motion, which we'll be referring, which involves only two parameters, damping ratio and the natural frequency. Now, the alpha which we obtain here in terms of CMK, that also can be converted in terms of the damping ratio and the natural frequency. This simple manipulations with that you can get this expression. This looks simpler as compared to the previous one. Here, if we take the plus and minus sign differently, so we'll get two roots of the equations. So alpha 1 with positive sign, alpha 2 with the negative sign. So solution for free vibration, then we can able to write as xt a1 e raised to alpha 1 t plus a2 alpha 2 t. So alpha 1 and alpha 2 are these. If we substitute this expression of alpha 1 and alpha 2 here, this equation will become like this. Here now we can have three different cases depending upon the damping level in the system. So one is the overdamped system. In overdamped system, generally the zeta is greater than 1 because damping is more than the critical damping. So in that case, both roots alpha 1 and alpha 2, these two will be negative in sign. Both will be negative in sign. So once they are negative, so if we, because this particular equation is the response of the system, which we can able to plot with respect to time. So this is a typical plot of displacement x and the time t. So you can see that once we are giving some initial condition, is decaying monotonously. Monotonically, it is decaying to zero. So there is an overdamped system in which if you give disturbance to the system, gradually it will come to its original position. So zero is the original position. We gave some initial displacement and leave it to vibrate, but because of the overdamped system, it is not vibrating. Gradually it is coming to the zero position. So this is an overdamped system. So overdamped system is basically aperiodic motion. There is no oscillations in that. Okay, so these are the. So if we this equation we can able to write in terms of because zeta is more than 1, so they can be expressed in terms of the cos h and sin h. So which is aperiodic motion. Then underdamped system in which zeta is less than 1. So in this case, both alpha 1 and alpha 2 will be complex in nature. So this alpha 1 and alpha 2, you can see if it is less than 1, the term within the square bracket will be negative. So we'll get the complex number, alpha 1 and alpha 2. And in this particular case, x will decrease gradually with time. So you can see this expression. So this is complex term has come now, and this again we can able to write in terms of cos omega dt, where omega d is defined as the damped natural frequency like this. J is nothing but the square root of -1. So here this is the response due to the underdamped system, in which C1 and C2 are the two constant to be we need to obtain from the initial condition. So this equation, if we plot, this will look like this. So this is the displacement, this is the time. So if you give disturbance to the system, it will oscillate few oscillations and then gradually it will become zero. Because this is underdamped system, so gradually it is becoming zero. If there is no damping, we'll get some kind of sinusoidal response which will never decay. Okay, but in actual system there is always damping, so this kind of behavior we'll find in the underdamped system. The C1 and C2 are two constant, but this equation can be written in other form, which is having some amplitude and the phase part. So here the C0 and phi are two unknowns. So either we can use this form of the equation or this form of the equation. Finally, we have two initial condition. So C1 and C2 or C0 and phi can be, we can able to find from the initial condition of the system. Third case is when the critically damped system, in which zeta is equal to I think it should be 1. Both in this particular case, both alpha 1 and alpha 2 will be equal, and x will decay to 0 quickly. Like generally, this will be the behavior. Okay, for critically damped system, you can see that this equation is time dependent, or term here is there, so it will decay like this. But in extreme case, it may cross once the zero line, but we need to give some kind of negative velocity, then only it will cross. But this is very unusual case. Generally, this will be the case. Like critically damped system, we know that we apply the system in the closing of door, any door which we want to close automatically. There we apply a mechanism which will be having critically damped thing, and it will be gradually closing. If this is an underdamped system, what will happen? A lot of oscillations will take place, so it may impact the frame of the door. So we need to design such that gradually it should close to its initial position. Okay, so I will just, I think whatever I covered, that was very basic. You already you have some idea about that. So I will take questions if you have something later. So I will go ahead with some other concept. So here, in the previous case, we solved the differential equation, but there are ways by which we can able to convert the differential equation into some kind of complex algebraic equation, like using Laplace transform. So in figure you can see there is a system which is excited by some force, and we are having some response. So this is a typical example of a aircraft wing in which some load because of wind or whatever is coming onto the wing, and this wing is rigidly fixed to the body of the aircraft. So this can be considered as a cantilever beam with variable cross section, and this is the free end of that particular thing. So this is a system in which the force is applied, and because of that it will be having some motion. So as I mentioned that the differential equation we can able to convert into complex algebraic equation using Laplace transform. I hope you have some background of the Laplace transform. Otherwise, in the mathematics course which you are taking, most of the MTech student, I think it will be covered in that if you are not done. So using this, then we obtain the transfer function, which will be linear time invariant. Time invariant means this algebraic equation will be will not depend upon time. As the governing equation, we had the x dot and x double dot time. The excitation force is time dependent. But once we transform using Laplace transformation, it will be independent of time. That is called time invariant system, and they are relatively easy to solve as compared to the differential equation. So here, the equation of motion which we had earlier, mx double dot plus c, c x dot plus kx is equal to 0. So that has been Laplace transform here. So this is due to the x double dot, Laplace transform of that. And this is due to the x dot. And this is the Laplace transform of x. And this is the Laplace transform of the force term. Laplace transform is defined here. You can see Laplace transform of x is given like this. So xt multiplied by e raised to s minus st. S is some the subsidiary variable, which is generally a complex number. S is generally a complex number. And so this is the Laplace transformation definition. Similarly, for the force, we can multiply by the same e raised to minus st, integrate from 0 to infinity. So this is represented as f bar s, which is the Laplace transform of ft. So this L sign is Laplace transform of ft. You must have studied the Fourier series in which the s is only the complex. So there, I think j omega t terms comes in the Fourier series. So, so Laplace transform is more general transformation as compared to the Fourier transformation. So now this particular equation which we got. So here you can see x dot 0 and x 0, they are initial conditions. So if we take those initial conditions, let us say 0, to simplify our expression, then this equation will become like this. This is from the inertia, this is from damping, this is from the stiffness, this is from the external force. Now you can see the x bar s is common in all three. So they can be taken common. So if we take common and rearrange like this, xt by fs, this expression. So this is the transfer function, which is the response divided by force in the Laplace transform domain, Laplacian domain. This is the transfer function. So once we have taken the common x bar s, this will be left out within the bracket, which is shown here, ms square plus cs plus k. Okay. And this equation in terms of mck can be converted using the damping ratio and the natural frequency. So that will become like this, I think. Okay. So this is a transfer function. And here you can in the block, you can see we are applying the force, which is in the Laplacian domain. We are getting the response in the Laplacian domain. And this is the transfer function. Basically, transfer function is the characteristic of the system which contain all the damping, mass, stiffness. So transfer function is the property of the system. This transfer function is also known as admittance. and inverse of the Laplace transform is known as impedance. So there are two definitions of this. In the previous block diagram, there are three quantity: force, property of the system, and the response. So generally, among these three, one will be unknown to us. And if the first case, let us say, we have the response unknown. So we know the system property, stiffness, damping, mass. We know the force, and we want to find out what is the displacement from the system. So this is the standard analysis of the system. This is called direct problem, in which we know the force, we know the system, and we want to obtain the response. In some cases, sometimes the force is unknown, but we know the response and we know the system. So such things are like instrumentations, measurement, calibration, or condition monitoring, or identifying the source of excitation. Like if in a machine, some fault has appeared, some machine part has broken. Because of that, force will come to the system and it will excite, and that will give some response. Because as a machine operator, you will be having, you can able to measure the vibrations, you know the system, but where is the fault you don't know. And your aim will be to find out that particular force which is giving this particular response. Okay, so this is another kind of problem in which we need to find out the force, and other two quantities are known to us. Third category is in which the system is unknown. We know what is the response in the system for a given force, but we don't know the system. We don't know the mass, stiffness, and damping of that. So this is something like finding the property of the system. Sometimes using mathematical modeling, we cannot able to find out the system property. So what we do, we give some force to the system, we measure the response, and we try to find out the property of the system. It is similar to the human beings, in which, let us say, if you want to find out the characteristics of, or the behavior of a particular system, a particular human being, we will ask some questions, and how he respond to those questions. Based on that, we'll try to find out what kind of person he is. So similar thing we can extend for the machinery. We will give some force to the known force to the machine, and how it is behaving. If we know in the form of displacement, we can find out the property of the system. Okay, so I will take some questions if you are here. So if anyone is having questions, he can raise hand, whatever I have covered. Any questions till now? Yeah, Rakesh.
Yes, sir. Hello, sir.
Yes.
Hello, sir. Sir, in the critical damping, when theta equal to 0, how does the alpha 1 and alpha 2 becomes equal?
That is 1 actually. Critical damping 1. I think there is
Okay,
a typo mistake.
Okay.
Because damping ratio is defined as damping divided by critical damping.
Okay.
So if damping is equal to critical damping, the ratio will be 1.
Okay,
so
sir.
that you treat that as 1.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other question? Okay. If there is no question, I will continue with that. So now I think this will be a new concept to all of you, because you have studied the sinusoidal force, the sine or cosine function force. But if the force is slightly different. One of the force is the unit step function force. So unit step function force is, so in the graph you can see this is the time, this is the amplitude of the force. The amplitude of the force is 1. It is applied at time t is equal to a, and it is applied suddenly to the system, and then it remains to the system, that particular force. The force magnitude remain the same to the system. Okay. So it's something like suddenly you added some mass to this spring mass system. Like a vehicle is moving, suddenly a particular man jumps to the car and then he moves along with the car. So sudden load is applied, a constant load, but here the unit step function is having magnitude 1. Okay. So this force is clear, and it is represented as U T minus A. So it is representing that the force is applied at time A. Okay. If this force is applied at 0 time, t is equal to 0, then it will be represented as ut only. Okay. Now, how we can able to write this figure in the mathematical form like this? So ut minus a is equal to 0 when time t is less than a. So you can see that there is no force when a is the time is before a. So there is representing that when time t is less than a, then is 0. When it is greater than a, then its value is 1. So this is the unit step function representation in the mathematics. Unit step function is a concept in mathematics, is having no dimension. For the present case, is a dimensionless. As I mentioned, when this unit step function is applied at t is equal to 0, we can represent this as ut. Our aim is to, if let us say in a spring mass damper system, the force Ft is represented using this force, then how the system will behave. So that will be our aim. So this is the unusual force which we have not studied earlier. And to this kind of force, when we are applying, the response which we'll get is called indicial response. So indicial response is nothing but due to the unit step function force. Yeah. So here some property of the unit step function force. So ut minus a, the Laplace of that is given like this. Okay. So e raised to st is, we know already, ut, and if you solve this, I think you can refer any the Laplace table. You'll get this Laplace of unit step function is e raised to a st by s. Okay. So if we have the unit step function at t is equal to 0, so a is 0. So you can see that Laplace transform of ut will be, when a is 0, the numerator will be 1 by s. So this is one of the property of this. Actually, as mentioned earlier, the unit step function is having the magnitude 1. So as we know, the Laplace transform of 1 is 1 by s. So is similar to that. Okay. Now we are doing the Laplace transform of the indicial response. What is indicial response? The response of a dynamic system due to unit step function. So if we are applying a unit step function to a system, how it will behave is called indicial response, and that is represented by GT. So here I'm going in a more general way. So this will be applicable to a wide variety of applications. So GT is the response. We are taking the Laplace transform of that. So that is represented as G bar S. Now, in the previous case, we have seen that the transfer function we defined. How we define the transfer function? Transfer function is response in the Laplacian domain divided by force. Okay, so using this equation, we can able to get the response as Laplace, the transfer function multiplied by the force. So here you can see this is the response we can get by multiplication of the transfer function into the force, which is here the unit step function, which is in the Laplacian domain, which is we can able to write like this also. Okay, and we know the Laplace transform of this we already obtained is 1 by s. So this can be replaced by 1 by s. So this will be gs by s. So the inertial response in the Laplacian domain will be given by gs by s, where gs is the transfer function of the system. Generally, we want the response, the inertial response in the time domain. So what we need to do, we need to do the inverse transform of this to get the in the time domain. So you can see to get the inertial response in time domain, we need to inverse transform the gs, which is this, and depending upon the type of function of gs, we can able to use Laplacian tables, and we can able to get the inertial response in terms of the time domain, the time dependent expression. Through some example, we'll see maybe in the next class how this expressions will be for a particular case. Here I'm trying to give a case which is more general. So GS can be, depending upon the system, can take different form. Okay, so this is clear. We have the unit step function we are applying to the system, and this is the inertial response due to that, which can be obtained using the transfer function like this. There is another kind of force which is called impulse. Okay, and if so, here you can see this is the time axis, and this is the magnitude of the force. So there is a force which is applied at t is equal to a. Magnitude of that force you can see here, but it is applied for a very short duration. So epsilon is a very short duration time, and the magnitude of the force is 1 by epsilon. So if epsilon is very small, so we can expect that the magnitude, that means 1 by epsilon, will be very high. But this is applied for a very short duration of epsilon. So the shaded area is basically the way it has been chosen will be 1, because the width of this is epsilon and height is 1 by epsilon. So area will be 1. And the unit impulse force is represented by delta. Delta T minus A is representing that the force, this the unit impulse force is applied at T is equal to A. If this is applied at T is equal to 0, then this will be delta T only. So similar to the previous case, here we have applied at A, so is delta T minus A. So some property of this unit impulse force, which is sometimes called the direct delta function, which is applied at T is equal to A, is expressed as like this. So this direct delta function will be 0 when T is not equal to A, because this time duration is very small. So we are saying K is acting at T is equal to A for very small duration. So this will be 0 at T is when T is not equal to A. And other property of this is if we integrate the force over 0 to infinity time, 0 to infinity, the area of that is 1, as we already seen. So if we integrate from 0 to infinity time, the That means the area of this will be 1. So these are the two property of the delta function. Some more properties are there, like if we have a function ft, if we multiply by this direct delta function t minus a, so the integration of this will be just simply f, a will be replaced, or t of the f will be replaced by a. If we have a is 0, then it will be f 0. So wherever t is appearing, we need to put a. If t minus a is there, or if it is applied at 0, so a will be 0. So f within bracket 0, that means wherever time terms will be there, we need to keep it 0. So this is a standard mathematical formula, nothing to do with the vibration. The Laplace transform of this unit impulse force, which is applied at t is equal to 0, is 1. Okay, so this also you can able to see here. If you put this, you can able to get the 1, because here t is equal to 0, a is equal to 0. So if you put here, I think you will get the 0. Okay, so this is 1. Okay, the unit of the unit impulse is inverse of time. So you can see that, yeah, so this is a unit of that is inverse of time. Next, again, now we are defining this particular force. Now if we apply this force to a, let us say, one particular dynamic system, how the response we will get, now we'll see through the slides. So impulsive response. So earlier the indicial response I represented as GT. Now I am representing the impulsive response as HT. So this is the response due to the unit impulse force. The previous one was for the step function, unit step function. This is for the unit impulse force. So we want to, our aim is to obtain the impulsive response, which is ST of the dynamic system. We are applying the unit impulse force at time t is equal to 0. Okay, so now if we take the Laplace transform of this impulsive response, which can be represented as h bar s, which is in the Laplacian domain. Again, using the transfer function, we can able to write this as transfer function multiplied by the force, as we did for the previous step function force. So, but the Laplace transform of delta t, we already seen that is equal to 1. So the indicial, the impulsive response will be equal to the transfer function itself directly. Earlier case, it was in the previous force case, it was GS by S, but now it is only GS, transfer function. So you can see that the impulsive response because of the this impulse force, unit impulse force is equal to this. Now to get the impulsive response in time domain, we need to do the Laplace inverse Laplace transform of this, like this. So we need to do here only the Laplace transform of the transfer function to get the impulsive response in time domain. Okay, so I described two type of force. One was the unit step function, another was the impulse impulse function. Now there is a relation between these two forces, which is given by this. So this is the step function, this is the impulse function, and this is the unit step function. So they're related by this. So mathematically, the unit impulse force is time derivative of the unit step function. Okay, as I mentioned, this unit impulse force and unit step function is a mathematical concept. And if you refer any book which you are following in mathematics, you can able to get these relations, how these two functions are related using the derivatives. So the unit impulse force is the time derivative of the unit step function force. Is related like this. But we know that in the previous case, we obtained the impulsive response as this, okay, impulsive response like this, and inertial response like this. So you can able to see that we can able to replace the GS with HS here. So if we combine these two, we can able to get the HS is equal to S into GS. So if we replace GS here with HS, so I'll get HS equal to GS into S. So this is that expression. So these two responses we are related like this. Now, now we need to see this. Okay. So here, what is there? We have the derivative. So I'm taking the derivative of the GT, and then Laplace transform of that. Okay. So this is a derivative of the GT and Laplace transform of that, because this is single derivative. So Laplace transform of this will be like this, having one initial condition. Okay. And that is equal to this, because SGS can be replaced by HS. So here the second term is as it is. SGS is replaced by HS because we already obtained that relationship in the previous expression. Okay. So the Laplace transform of GT by DT is HS minus G0, which is the initial condition of this. Okay. And this expression now I want to write in terms of HS. HS equal to this right side term is here. I'm bringing this term to that side plus GS. So this expression has been obtained from this. HS is equal to this plus this quantity. Okay. So here we are trying to relate this to quantity in the time domain. So now we have got the HS and GT relationship. Now to get the H in time domain, we need to do the Laplace transform of the whole thing. So here you can see, if I do the inverse Laplace transform of this, I'll get this as HT, and the inverse transform of this is written like this here. If I bring this inverse Laplace transform inside, they will get cancelled. So I'll get GT by T, and inverse transform of this, because this is a constant, G naught is constant. So inverse Laplace transform of constant is nothing but the delta T, which we have seen that the Laplace transform of GT is 1. So inverse of Laplace transform 1 will be GT. This we already seen. So that has been used here. So now you can see that we have related the HT and the GT like this, where G naught is the constant. Okay, so we related the impulsive response with the indicial response. So okay, so I think I will stop here. So if you have any questions, I think we can raise the questions. Yeah. Rakesh?
Sir, how does the unit of that impulsive force become inverse of time?
Let me check what you're saying.
Sir, in that graph,
Yeah, let me check. I'll again share that slide, then things will be more clear.
yes, sir.
So you can see the slide.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if you see this equation 1.32, okay,
Yes,
1.32. So there is a multiplication of delta t minus a into dt, okay, is equal to a constant 1.
yes, sir.
So if it is constant 1 and here dt is there, so the unit of delta should be 1 by time.
Okay, okay, sir.
Yeah, because this is a mathematical definition. This is a mathematical
Okay.
definition. For present case, it will be 1 by time because of this. Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other question? Yeah, Jeevan. Jeevan Patel.
Yes, sir.
Ah,
Sir, my doubt is we have that equation mx dot t plus cx dot t plus kx t equal to f of t, where this equation is in time domain, and then we applied Laplace transformation and converted it in the Laplace domain.
yes.
Sir, and we find x of s, g of s, and f of s. And sir, can't we find directly x of t from that equation?
That
Because
is
after all, finding x of s in the Laplace domain, we are again for the finding response in the time domain, we are again applying the inverse Laplace to that function.
yeah. Yes, yes.
Yes.
So is up to because this is an approach. So his user has to decide whether he can directly integrate or solve the differential equation or
Okay, sir.
okay. So these are approaches. So some people prefer this or that. So is having some advantage but some disadvantage also.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
And
So
sir,
what
any physical interpretation of this, why we are doing?
this is a finally we are solving the equations. No.
Okay.
So here the convenience of the solving is there. So as such physical interpretation is not there because there is a way of doing the solving the equations.
Okay, sir.
Like for directly we can able to solve. We assume the solution. We already solved that. Okay, but
Yes,
these
sir.
approach are applicable when they will be more handy when we'll go for the multi-degree of freedom system. So
Okay,
there
sir.
solving differential equation will be more difficult. So for single degree of freedom system, no issue. But when we go to the multi-degree of freedom system, then these approaches may be handy. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Manpreet.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Actually, my question is same as Sir Patel asked. I also want to know that how these unit function and step function are going to be used in our vibration analysis. I mean,
Yeah.
where we can see application of these.
Yeah, like any structure, sometimes like earthquake is coming and the bridge is vibrating because of that. So this earthquake is aperiodic motion.
Yes.
Okay. So either if we have the data key, okay, how this is varying, we can able to do it, or like a vehicle is coming to the bridge, so suddenly it is coming.
Yes.
No. So once it is coming, then that can be idealized as a step function.
Yes.
Okay. So this is a mathematical convenience of the actual loading. If let us say some structure is getting hammered because of some maintenance, so how the structure will behave, we can able to analyze using the impulse force model.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So this is a way of convenience how we can able to analyze the mathematically the actual physical phenomena of the suddenly applied load or some impulsive load.
It means that we are also going to use Laplace transformation in our numerical portion.
Not that much. Not that much. Maybe in the means last part of the I think course we'll use, but definitely we'll use.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
Manpreet Singh, Benny.
Sir, will you share the slides on Teams?
Slide, which slide?
Like all these ones?
You want the slides?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'll send that also.
Okay. Also, what about the textbook? I didn't get any idea about that.
Whether you are there in the WhatsApp group?
No, I am not there.
Yes, so you should be there. No? You
Okay.
contact Pantha.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
You contact Pantha. Okay. So I'm covering from that book only. So everything is from there.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Little bit here and there I'm adding it, but most of the things is from there. And also you are getting email also, I hope, of the video.
Yeah, I am getting it.
So we are put in the stream, so we can able to see that also. So G1.
Sir, sir, when we are calculating admittance, we have used Laplace equation.
Yes.
Laplace equation, the time is varying from 0 to infinity, right, sir? Sir, but generally, in real case conditions, the force is not going to vary from 0 to infinity. It is going to stop for after some time.
Yeah.
For real case conditions, can we calculate this impedance?
Yeah, because if that is 0, it will take 0.
Means we can use Laplace equations for infinity time also.
No. The force is applied a short duration. Rest of time it will take as 0. Okay. Rest of the time it will take that as 0.
Okay.
Like I will give the example. One is the impulsive one. So impulsive force is applied and then suddenly released. So rest of the period it will be 0. But in the step case, when the force is applied, it remains there. Okay. So I think once we'll take up some example, you'll see that the step function, like a spring mass system is there. Suddenly, if you apply some weight on that, so it will oscillate, but after some time it will decay.
Okay.
Yeah, like maybe I think you are in some platform which is flexible. Suddenly you jump on that, and you are there in that particular platform after jumping. What will happen? It will oscillate, and then after some time it will decay. Okay, so that kind of maybe through example it will be more clear.
Okay.
So any other question? I think there is no question, so I'm stopping it. So even if you have some query or some issue, you can email me. Okay, in my email ID or in the group. I will respond to that. Okay, any issue, because I should get the input how the course is going and if you have any issue. Umesh. Umesh. Okay, I think by mistake, I think. So I'm stopping here. Okay.
Hello, sir.
Tell me.
Sir, my question is that when when the excitation force is periodic, so can we use Laplace transformation at that for that system?
Yeah, we can use it, but that will be oversimplification. We can use it. Yeah,
we can use Laplace transformation for any type of signal, like.
Yeah, this is general approach. Okay. Okay, so I'm stopping now. So we'll meet on Friday at 4 o'clock now. Bye.